So pieces that you cut when you're making your bowl blanks, perfect little pieces for spatulas, spoons. These are a little on the thinner side, so I'm going to make spatulas out of these, but these are all the center cuts, getting rid of the pith. So imagine if you had the whole log like that, and you cut out the center, you get your two bowl blanks or maybe some spindle blanks, either way, whatever you want to use them for. And then this is your leftover and perfect little project. So just three little pieces. I like to combine my techniques when I make these sometimes. If they were spoons, I'd probably power carve them right on the spot. I'll use the bandsaw and I'll use my sanding disc sander and belt sander later to finish shaping them. But we'll do the majority of the basic shape by turning it on the lathe. So 4-prong center, and then I use a cup center with a center point here, and that way what I can do is get as precise as possible without hopefully splitting it all up. A 2-prong center will split when you do this, so I don't recommend a 2-prong. You can also capture the end in a chuck just for a little stability, but it's not necessary. So I'm just gonna put this between centers, make sure it's secured, and then looking at the thickness of it is going to be the other thing. Normally they're pretty even, but sometimes you might be off a little bit. Maybe you want the fatter side for your handle. Okay. So this is pretty even, so it's not going to really matter much. And it's about the same for the heartwood all the way through here, so you're going to get partial heartwood, partial sapwood. So it's not going to really matter. There's no design element that's going to benefit by going one way or another on this piece. So basically, just rough down the shape. I'm using a spindle guide. Stop and take a quick look. Now another thing is, if it's not a real thick handle, you may want to keep it just rounded on the sides and keep a little more handle, so you got a flat top and bottom that you can sand smooth. That gives you a little bit more to grip onto. And then you can always pinch it down in the detail and put a decorative element, and then just round the end off. So we'll see. I'll take a little bit more off just to make sure. And I can see that because I'm not exactly on the center point, I'm not getting the same roundness yet on this piece, so I might just go with that flat edge but I'm going to take just a little bit more. I like to leave a pretty good sized spatula on, so I'll probably come to about here because I got to take some end off, and that'll be waste. So figure about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch is gone for sure. And just to get an idea, we can take that end down a little bit. And I'm just going to plunge straight in. Sure, get some chip out there. Not too bad. And like I said, I can tell I'm off center a little bit, which on this end I don't mind so much, but this end I could readjust it a little bit, but you could start splitting the end open, so I'm going to leave it. But that looks like there may be a little bit of a crack. I might take it down a hair more yet. In the end, we'll be sanding that end anyway, so I'm not too worried about how the cut is. Although not too bad for being an air cut in between. And I think we're starting to get past the crack, because there is a crack right here. So I'm just going to take this and even it out so I know what I'm working with. Okay, a little chip out there, starting to take a nice shape right there. So we've got a little chip out here, and that's because I can see the grains going diagonally this way just a little bit right here. So that'll probably be all stuff we can sand out in the end, but I'm probably going to take one more pass, finish shaping up. I'm going to move this up about here, which will take care of that chipped out section, and then if I take a pass here, that'll minimize some of that, and then I'll probably take the handle down a little bit more yet. Yeah, so some nice light cuts, took out pretty much all of the chipping there. So now we're in really good shape. So that'll all sand nice and smooth when we're done. I'm going to take that down anyway. And so let's take this down a little bit, get the handle going, and that'll be most of the turning for this piece on. And speed I'm turning at is about 3,000. Start establishing the end because that's got to come off anyway. Okay, so we're getting round here, which is kind of a nice little change. And then still nice and solid here. I might take a little bit, just refine it a little bit. This is still probably a little bigger than I would like, so I'm going to take it down just a hair more. But I don't want to take off too much in case I need to take off the end, which I'll do right at the bandsaw. And that way I can make sure I get that crack out all the way. I think I'll probably refine this end a little bit just to make sure there isn't any surprises coming off of the 4-prong spur. Good size, gives you a nice, decent grip. So I'm going to call it a day on that. And then that'll all get sanded up off the lathe later. So that's one. So this has got a fatter end here. So I can do one of two things. I can add more angle to what I have for my spatula, and have my shape come another handle where it comes down and around like that, and then leave that flat on top, and then I could come up and I can angle that so that I got a nice angle in my handle, and that's bottom, and shave the top off and bring that up. And that's a nice spatula, so I might go with that. Plus this end is, it's about the same. Now this is another place where you could play with a little bit of your design. If I wanted to take some of that bottom off, I could just shift this over, and that way I'm taking off the bottom here and leaving that top completely alone. So we could do that, just to kind of show how that works. So now if you look, you'll be able to see this is slightly off center towards me, and this is centered. So the handle should be pretty close to centered. and then that'll give us a little bit more on that top so that I can get that angle that I was talking about on the spatula part. So now it's just back to roughing it down real quick. So that just established the end of my handle. I can start seeing about how big I want to make it. This is a little bigger spatula. Some of this width will obviously come off and it'll probably end up somewhere about right here. And that should still be a decent width. So I'll probably refine the handle from here once I get some of this figured out as far as how wide I'm going to be. Then I'll match the handle to what I think looks good with the spatula itself. And I kind of want to see where I'm landing as far as that offset for the top of the materials. So I'll focus on that a little bit. And this is the nice thing about doing these projects with these. They're all individual. I don't do any repeat ones. I do it all based on the piece of wood that I throw on the lathe at that time. And then when my customers get them, I know that it's theirs. It's the one they picked out. It's the one they like. Nobody's going to have that one again. I just want to look for chip out right away because that could change things really quickly on you. Sometimes, like there's a knot that was around in here. You can see where the grain is kind of funny. That'll cause you chip out here. You can see some grain was starting to chip out a little bit on the end, but it's not too bad. Slow, small cuts when you want to get some refined edges will take care of any of that. Everything looks good, so just continue to refine this, start bringing that handle, and I may just kind of establish where I think I want to cut this off. That'll give me proportions and dimensions to work with. Yeah, nice cuts. Actually, good cuts right off the tool. And I don't want to go too much thinner because I can already feel, and I got a pretty big hand. Some of the handles I've made, when I thought they were comfortable, some people thought they were a little bit too big. So I just like to keep that in mind. I'll probably just shape this down here, finish off the end shaping, and I think we're pretty good on length. I can always take it off on the end, and the handle length is good. So we'll just finish up that handle and then move on to the next one. Okay, nice little decorative element there. Little rough tool mark there, but that's sandable. And the handle looks like it's good size. So what I do like about having flat spots that people don't think about when they're making these is it's a good index point. Sometimes it's just a comfort point. And actually, now that I grab this, I don't know if I like how short the handle is. I'm going to take this down a little bit more actually. Yeah, that's a little better. I still could probably go a little bigger on the handle, but like I said, I make it too big for me, then other people don't like it. So I'm gonna go with that. And that's another one done, roughing. And I don't really see any cracks, so we'll probably just take that, flush it off with the bandsaw, and then we're done. This is a nice thick one. This one could actually be a spoon. So maybe I'll make a spoon out of this one just to change it up a little bit. It means I'll have to get some other tools out, but I think that'd be a good opportunity for how I make my other utensils too. So it doesn't look like it'll matter too much. You gotta establish where you want the spoon to be. So maybe something like this side's a little nicer. So just a rough circle. And rough idea of the handle. And that's what I'll start with, and we'll see where we go from there. Actually, a bull gouge works really good for a lot of material. Now you can't see it, but I can actually see a shadow of the pencil line that I put on here before, so I'm going to just start roughing in that shape a little bit on the outside. Okay, so you can see there's a pencil mark. Obviously, I didn't do a very good job drawing it based on center, but the nice thing is my artwork doesn't matter because it's going to be symmetrical here as I'm cutting it down. So I was obviously catching this line. I'm going to try and bring it up a little closer to this line instead, but I don't want to go too much because I want edge, and this is going to be a big kind of shallow ladle type spoon. I just want to see that I cleaned up the edge here because I had some edge that wasn't, yep. So that still needs to go. So we got to come in a little bit further. You can see it's starting to refine the shape a little bit, and it's looking good. A lot of handle material that we can work with yet. So I just hope I don't have a crack there. So I got to keep an eye on this because there's what looks like a crack here, and that doesn't mean you can't use it, but the bottom and the top orientation could play a big difference in whether the spoon's salvageable or not. So I'm going to take a little bit more length off of here, get that edge down, probably refine this down in, and then we'll take a look, and then I'll move on to the handle. Okay, finally got rid of that bark on the edge. And I do see a crack, but that's fine because we'll just come down here. That'll be the bottom. So with that crack there, that'll be getting scooped down So all this bottom will curve around and be smooth, and then it'll curve around down this way too. So that will help me so I don't forget. And then this will all get carved away too. So I'll do a little bit more in the handle quick, and then I'll get my carving burrs out. Okay, I'd like to get totally round on this one because it's a big enough handle. So I'm going to see what I can do there. Okay, almost round everywhere. There's just a little bit of roughness there, but otherwise it's pretty well round. So I can do a little shape here, maybe put a decorative bead, maybe even burn a line on the end here, something like that. Just whatever you feel like doing, that's what makes it fun. That wasn't a good choice because the skew can't get in there real good. So we'll just re-roll that bead. Now use a skew if we want. Maybe we'll do a burn band up here on the handle. Pretty big one, but let's just take it down slightly. Other way you can do it is have a nice point tool, just real simple, just a triangular shape. Roll it over. catch the edges so that they're not rough. There, no more sharp edges on that. That's one way to do it too. Skew, or that'll work. It doesn't really matter. So now you can see, nice round shape. This is all set. What I'll probably do is leave some material here and here because as I'm doing the carving, I don't want it to go bad. So I'm going to get my carving stuff set up and then I'll be back. Going to be these 1-inch cutters, and I use a coarse one and then I use a fine one to try and refine it before I have to sand it. Then I use a shafted rotary power tool. There's a number of ways that some people use jigs and they use grinders and it just sweeps it out and done. I find this is just a little more interactive. I enjoy the interaction, so I spend the extra time that it takes. And that's one more thing that I can share with my customers as they ask me about the process, because sometimes they're very interested about the process, so it gives me something to explain to them. So this is a 1-inch course, and we have to change the count. I'm just working with a smaller one. Pellets are a little bit difficult to work with getting them out for some reason, but the good thing is I can change sizes, whereas my chuck one has a limit to the size. It's really nice for quick changes over the collet, but unless you're changing sizes of your bits, then the collet works great. So it just gets chucked in like any other collet chuck. Away. Now I also like to keep this handy because what's nice is I use it as a rest. So I use this as a rest, and then that helps me with control, and then sometimes I will lock the spindle depending on where I want to carve. And then the only other thing I tend to do, just as a guide, I try to give myself a line for a border, and that's all I do is I give myself approximately a 1/4 inch. And then I'll refine that 1/4 inch edge as needed. But at least it gives me some kind of guide, even if it's not perfect. And I don't care if it's not perfect, because that's part of the charm of these People really like the way that they turn out for me because they're not perfect. And that's just something that they all comment on when I talk to the customers. So my rotary tool is a foot activated, so it's nice I have 2 free hands, but if you're not used to them, they take a little bit of adjustment to get used to how they work. So I've locked my spindle. I'm just going to start hogging a lot of this out, and then I'll stop and check just to see how it feels. It can be uneven if you're not careful. Just the usual things with power carving. So what I did was I went around the border, tried to establish kind of a stop point so that I can sneak into it. Otherwise, if I dig too deep right away, I find that I start getting all over into the border that I want to keep, and it gets a little bit messy. Okay, so to give you an idea, and somewhere around, it looks like about 3/4 of an inch, so I've got lots of room to go yet. And I don't always use that. Sometimes I leave them a little bit shallow. It depends on what kind of spoon you're making and kind of how you feel that day, I guess. We're still over a 1/2 inch according to that, but I think we're close to where we're gonna change and we're gonna use a refining bit. So that was obviously the extremely coarse one. And then one thing that fools you is it says fine, but there's a lot of bite on the fine bit even. As you can see from all the dust that it kicks up, I'd recommend normally have my dust collection on, but I don't right now just because of the video. Okay, so there's the basis of our spoon. And then what I'll do is I'll take this over to the bandsaw, I'll cut that off, and then I'll shape the rest of the outside with my belt sander. It's just a lot faster. I can show you what it would be like if I do it this way. It's just a lot more work. So here you can kind of get a better angle and you can see where I start shaping it, but the belt sander is a lot faster at 80 grit belt. So I'll just take this right off with the bandsaw. This will come off, and then I'll just start shaping that. And that I do need to turn the dust collection on, or the entire shop will be just coated in dust. So I'm gonna do the shaping of the rest of these, and then I'll bring them back, and then I'll show what I apply for finish. Okay, so they're all sanded up now, ready to go. You can see, just kind of break the edges, refine them a little bit, nice and smooth. And there were some things that I probably could have sanded on the lathe and saved myself some time, like these handles, the outside of the handles. Then I could have hit the flats. The spoon, the handle could have been done too, but I chose to do it offline. I got distracted. So I used the belt sander on shaping this, which is really nice because you can put that right on the round and then carry through for the flat. And then I always put a little bit of bevel right here just to bring it down without making it too sharp. So I get about 1/8 of an inch edge. Make sure I break those corners really good. And now you can see it's not straight. It's a little bit of an angle. And the same thing with this one. Just a little bit of an angle there, about 1/8 inch. Break the corners again. Then I came back and did my final sanding using this and a drill with a 2-inch. This can be very difficult, so one of the recommendations is card scrapers for cabinets, and this is round so it gets right in there, and that works pretty good. That gets rid of some of the really deep grooves, and then you come back and you can sand it with sandpaper after that. And then I use butcher block conditioner, and this has got mineral oil and beeswax and carnauba wax. So this is a really good blend. I have found really good success with it, so I continue to use it. So all I need to do with that now can just slather some on. Grab a rag, smear it, get it in there really good, and you can see how nice that brings up the grain. Sometimes with certain species of wood, I have found, just like even water base or other finishes, you may have to knock it down again after. I don't do a water pop generally. I try and sand up to about 320. That way whatever it pops, I know is going to be the long term. And if I need to sand it again, I do. Sometimes I just take white Scotch-Brite and buff it off. And that works really good too because it's not overly abrasive. You're going to see wear and tear when people start using them in their kitchens, and they're going to get them full of water, so they're never going to stay completely smooth no matter how many times you sand them. And then I instruct people on how to maintain them so that if there's any really fuzzy areas that have a tendency to come up, which I find anywhere where those curves are, those are my trouble spots if I'm going to have them at all. And if you don't do a good job, the finish is going to tell you because it emphasizes everything. Like right there, I can see I could have sanded that a lot better. So even though I'm applying this and it'll probably gum up my sandpaper, I'm going to still go through and apply it because it'll saturate it and it'll be ready to go. And then all I got to do is do a quick touch up with the sanding disc and it's ready to go. And then I'll throw a little bit of a finish back on wherever I sand. But I do like that this has some wax and it's pretty liquefied. It's not a real heavy gel. And as it sits on the shelf, it turns a little more liquid than when you first start, which just helps it penetrate even more. And then that wax helps to protect so that you aren't constantly having problems every time you use it. You go to wash it and you're washing all the oil out. Like if it was just straight mineral oil, I don't recommend it because it doesn't hold up. I don't do it on cutting boards, I don't do it on utensils. I just don't care for the inability for it to really protect the product that you go through the trouble of making. And I'd rather spend a little extra money on the front end finishing than to have to supply some maintenance with every single piece and instructions and have customers coming back saying it's not holding up. So I choose to use a better conditioner. And there is a couple of different options to this brand, but I find the Butcher Block conditioner is my favorite. Of course, getting in the details isn't the easiest, but worth it. And I'll take a look at it after it dries and I wipe it off, and if it still looks really dry like it's needing it, I'll add another coat. Usually do not need to do that, but every once in a while I'll find something that just is extra dry and sucked up all the finish and needs another coat. Of course, the end grain will be the worst. So right here you're gonna have problems, right here you're gonna have problems there, and on the end. Sometimes over here you might get a little bit dry. Depends on how good you sand too. If we got a lot of extra open pores there, then it's going to want more. And I do take my time and I put on a lot. Because I can see it's already starting to soak in and dry, so I'll add another coat on this. It's not a high gloss, but that's okay. It's not what I want in my utensils anyway. I want them to look authentic. I want them to look like they're kind of old-fashioned. I find that's the best way to make them look like that, is have a little sheen. Because if they're perfect, they're probably not handmade. So now I'll come back in about 20 minutes, between 20 minutes and an hour. We'll take a look at them, wipe off the excess, make sure there aren't any spots that look really dry. And if everything's good, then I'm done. Otherwise, I throw another coat on, wait another 20 minutes, half an hour, and I'll wipe off the excess at that point, because it's just not going to absorb in some places. So hopefully you enjoyed the process of making these. And take a shot yourself sometime. If you have any questions on what I did or how I make my process from start to finish, just leave a comment in the comment section and I'll get back to it as soon as it comes in.